Barbara Rourke. I'm here this morning putting our WCFA spotlight on Kazys Varnelis, who is the president of the Native Plant Society of New Jersey, and they are going to have a special event at the end of September. It's a weekend getaway, they're calling it, at the Cape May Point Science Center, formerly the red-roofed landmark of St. Mary's by the Sea. That retreat house, it's now a science center. Tell us, Kazisa, why do native plants need a society?
Native plants are a critical part of our ecosystem. They are the plants that actually belong here. They feed pollinators and animals in our state, and they are not something that gets the attention they deserve. It's actually a really bizarre thing I found that people, for some reason, seem to like exotic plants. It's a mystery to me. It seems like somewhere between a racket on the part of some growers and just strange beliefs in exoticism that we, for some reason, import plants from overseas and don't grow plants that belong here. It's a very strange thing because the plants that are native to New Jersey, the plants are
Or wherever, right?
or wherever, but
Hmm.
but the plants that are native to our state, which is where we are, can be very beautiful, can look as good as anything you can find from overseas, and they have the advantage that that they don't get out of control the way that so many of the plants that have been imported have. Recently, I was in Europe. In fact, I was actually right by the beach in a famous beach community near Riga, Latvia, called Jurmala. And there was just a random person's house, and I saw two plants, American pokeweed and staghorn sumac, plants that are very hard to find in nurseries here. American pokeweed, I know only one nursery that grows it at all in New Jersey, Randy Eccles Toadshade Wildflower Farm, which is, as Randy said, maybe their motto should be Stranger Things because they sell all the strangest native plants that you could buy. She sells poison ivy seeds. They say they always sell out. She says somebody wants them, and but she's the only one who grows American pokeweed, and you could clear this was not some kind of extreme gardener in Jurmala, Latvia. This was just a random average person who was growing this plant, which, by the way, has been grown so much it's becoming invasive there. And they also had staghorn sumac, which very few people would plant, although it's a gorgeous looking plant. They're both really fascinating plants. Why is it that we can't get them here, but you can buy them in a nursery in Jurmala, Latvia? That makes no sense to me.
Pretty interesting.
And there's so many stories like this. Our Canada goldenrod, as it's called, is spreading like wildfire in China and Japan. We have all sorts of problems with these invasive plants, and just because you plant something doesn't
And we
today
have we have
doesn't mean it's
invasive
become invasive.
bamboo around here.
Oh yeah, and a little while ago I saw a truck pulling up to a property. It said Bamboo Doctors here in Montclair, New Jersey, right by not far from the high school. And I thought, oh gee, Bamboo Doctors, this guy must be like having a big project wiping out some invasive bamboo that somebody had planted. And they were still taking it off the back of the truck and planting it. And I thought, my gosh, why are we doing this? So our native plants don't get the attention they deserve. And
I I always like the lowly state flower of New Jersey, the violet.
oh yeah. A beautiful flower. And I grew up, even with my Lithuanian name, I was born in Chicago, but where there weren't many native plants because at the time, certainly have embraced the movement in that city more than many of us around here have, which is interesting. But then I moved to the Berkshires, or my parents moved to the Berkshires in Western Mass when I was about 10 or 11. And I would love walking in the woods, and I loved seeing the wildflowers there every spring, and the ferns and all the weird plants everywhere. And I just thought this was just heaven. And then I moved to the suburbs here in Montclair in northern Jersey. We bought a property that happened to be a kind of woodland edge condition, although there really isn't a woodland on the other side. There's just the edge. And it turned out that, I said, well, what am I going to do? I said, well, maybe I could do something that'll remind me of the place that I grew up in. And so that's how I wound up getting involved in native plants. And I think my story is not that unlike other people's. A lot of people get involved for the ecological services, the idea of, helping pollinators. but I think all of us are to some degree concerned about are the environment. But at the same time, there's this idea that, these are things that belong in New Jersey. This is kind of a treasure that New Jersey has, and yet somehow we neglect them. And that's the same is true for any state and any place, really. There are very few places where people understand how important native plants are. And let me just say one more thing about invasive plants. Recently did a study, and while this involved, or I looked this up, I didn't do a study. I looked this up on the internet, but the UN did a study, and they found that invasive organisms of all sorts, which includes animals, insects, but a lot of those hitch a ride on ornamentals that are brought into the country.
Uh,
They cost the world over $4 billion a year. And the lead author of the study said that was the number they could have that was the number that they came up with, but he's convinced that it's actually much more. It's in the trillions. And yet I looked up, and the amount of the ornamental exotic trade back and forth across borders in the US is about $400 million or something. It's very, very small. So why is it that, and obviously if the US is kind of the most powerful economy in the world, then how much more is it worldwide? Guys, why are we doing this when it's costing us so much money? Not just, uh, filling our woods with Japanese barberry that has spikes all over it and harbors deer ticks, but also, impacting agriculture greatly. It impacts our agricultural communities very, very much. It's hundreds of millions in New Jersey alone for the problems invasive species pose for agriculture. And we've seen the insects that come along with these plants, things like spotted lanternfly, the emerald ash borer, the Dutch elm disease,
mhm.
the chestnut blight, one thing after another that has wiped out, for example, our trees, just terrible. We don't have many trees left at this point. So these
Right.
are some reasons we exist, and to get more attention to our
Yeah.
native.
We actually try to do that on the radio station with music, try to put some music on that's native to New Jersey.
That's fabulous, and just great, and the other thing is that it allows us to the music that's native to New Jersey, then somebody can come, from Massachusetts or Japan or something and come and enjoy what's here because of the local flavor,
Right.
Never happened to that idea of local flavor in our day of globalization and the internet, we missed I think we're missing that a little bit.
Well, you love it and you hate it at the same time. You're pretty international yourself.
Sure. So, and I set out, my father was an artist, but he always said, don't be an artist, and wouldn't let me study any of that. So I didn't do that for a long time. I actually studied, of all things, I wound up in a strange field called the history of architecture, which is important if you're training architects. And I taught for many years and finished up at teaching at Columbia University in the city. That's actually what brought me out to New Jersey. Since then, I've wound up working more and more in the arts. In fact, speaking of the internet, a lot of my art has involved technology in various ways. That's been a fascinating field to me. And I've written a lot about technology. I mean, I was the other side of me was when I was, when a teenager, was one of the first wave of kids who got into PCs. I had an old VIC 20,
Okay, yeah.
for $300 or something like that, but and I've ever been involved in technology ever since, but at the same time, one of the reasons that I am in native plants now is because I find I've always been interested in challenges. And one of our challenges, I think, for the native plant movement is trying to make the world of native plant gardening incorporate more principles of good design, because a lot of people, I think, are really well-meaning, but then, they don't really know anything about garden design. And then their neighbor says, well, it just looks like a bunch of weeds to me. And it's like,
Yeah.
as it doesn't have to look like a bunch of weeds. You can go to, what's one of the most attractive, what's one of the biggest attractions in New York City? The High Line, which is, and there's
Right.
a designer there. It's not all native plants, but, like say by 80 or 90%. And it's by Pete Odolph, the world's greatest landscape designer. You can go to the Lurie Garden in Chicago, which he also designed, or you can go see the native plant garden at the New York Botanical Garden or the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. And while those are both, let's say, naturalistic, they look a little bit like nature. They are clearly, show the trace of the human mind and
Hmm.
aesthetic intent. So that's what I'm after. So I'm trying to do here on my little property in Montclair, try to work a little bit on that. I think I got inspired by this amazing gardener in Western New Jersey, right by the Delaware River, James Golden, who has an amazing garden called Federal Twist. Not that many native plants there, but I said, look at this guy's garden. He just did this himself in 15 years or so. I think I can do that. So about a little bit of the way in on that. And but my challenge is native plants, so I have to learn how to design with these plants that have their own restrictions and don't, they don't always go where you want them, but that's part of gardening, and it's fascinating because you have to embrace randomness and change. And Larry
And
Weiner,
shade and sun and
yeah. Oh yeah, Larry Weiner, and shade and sun change. If you have a tree growing, that changes your shade situation. Or if a tree dies, oh
right.
boy, that's going to change it too. Larry Weiner, who's a great landscape designer operating out of southeastern Pennsylvania, talks about native plant design as being like jazz. You have to learn to improvise. Um,
That's a
and
good analogy.
and he is a jazz musician as well. So I think it's a fascinating field, and that's why I'm just so excited about it.
Great. Are you going to be down there at the overnight getaway?
I will. I showed the pictures to my wife, and she just, are you kidding me? Of course we're going.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what she'd say. A couple of when was it? 2 years ago for her birthday, she insisted we go to Cape May, even though her birthday is March 19th. So she's a big fan. And
She went
but
you went in March?
yes, yeah. Oh, it was cold then. I'll tell you, it was cold. But it was the only way we could actually afford to stay at the Congress Hall was to go in
Okay.
the off season. It was still a fortune though, but it was well worth it. I'm going to be there. So is our past president, Randy Eccles, who I just mentioned from Toad Shade Wildflower Farm. So we're going to be a number of our board members. It's going to be a fabulous time. We're really delighted that Cape May Point Science Center offered their facility to us. As an architectural historian, I'll say that the former St. Mary's, or before that, the Shoreham Hotel, is a
Mhm.
beautiful example of beach architecture from that golden age. And I'm just fascinated. For one of my students, when I taught at UPenn, one of my students, I don't know how maybe this book isn't very popular at the shore. I don't know, but one of my students, her husband, his name escapes me for the moment, but he wrote the book Close to Shore. Do you know that book about the great shark attacks of 100 years ago?
Oh
A
no.
bit further north, but
Okay.
it's a fantastic book. Unfortunately, it came out on September 11th, 2001. So
And
it didn't get the
one.
press that the Today Show, I think he was scheduled to be on that, and that didn't happen. But
Oh,
Close to Shore, Michael Caputo, that's his name, is an amazing book about the time back in 100 years ago when these hotels were being built, and the kind of the cultural mixing that would happen there, the new women's liberation of women showing their ankle
yeah.
watered into the ocean. I'm just, I think I'll be bringing that book along with me to like think about the history of that place, and Cape May, and the Jersey Shore, just a really storied history and part of American history. So we're just, for me as an architecture historian, I'm extra excited about this place. We have a pretty full weekend, but at the same time, we're giving people a lot of time to just wander around and enjoy all the native plants of Cape May Point and Cape May as a whole.
I saw on the website you're kind of sold out as far as people boarding at the hotel, but they can get nearby hotels. They can still attend the programs.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
we,
that
we
the correct?
definitely
Do I have that right?
Yeah, we definitely still have well, the programs are selling out, but well, the breakfasts are selling out, but the we still have our big Saturday dinner and our Friday night wine and cheese. The dinner seems like a better deal, though it's a BYOB for on Saturday. But we aren't making any money off of this. In fact, everything is going straight to paying for the food, and also the Cape May Point Science Center's lodging. So NPSNJ doesn't even get a penny, but that's fine. But that's not what we're about. We just want. Last year, when Randy was president, she decided every September we should go to a different part of the state and have something. And we last time we had a very successful one day, no overnights, just event at the Great Swamp. outdoor education center up here further north. And we realized that a lot of people hadn't been to the Great Swamp, which is this amazing area of New Jersey that people got together and saved in the 1960s when the state and the federal government wanted to build a giant airport there. They built it in JFK. They built JFK instead. And it's this incredible area. It's a national wildlife refuge. It's incredible wildflowers in the spring,
It's in
beautiful
New Jersey?
rhododendrons. Yeah, the Great
It's
Swamp. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
up in Somerset County,
Okay.
up near sort of head sort of southwest of Basking Ridge there. Kind of right in that area, big area there. So we did that, and then we said, well, let's when the possibility we started talking about an overnight when Kim Carrero, our programs director, identified the Cape May Point Science Center as a possibility that we could stay in. Oh, that got very exciting. And we've already sold out. So it's not like there were that many rooms, but there were only 30 rooms available, but it seems like it's going to be great. Very excited about that. Also very excited that Cape May Point Science Center was able to save this building because I guess there was talk about, maybe tearing it down and turning the area into environmental area. Well, sure, do the latter, but there's no reason to tear down like such a beautiful structure,
Right.
So very glad
The
they were
nuns
able.
wanted to let nature take its course.
Yeah, which there are places you can do that. Maybe as the architecture historian, don't do that in where there's something that beautiful, and
The
that
other,
rare because we're losing buildings.
I always found it reassuring when I'm walking on the beach in Cape May to look down, see the lighthouse and the red roof there. Kind of reassuring down there. Warding off hurricanes, possibly. Who knows? But
Yeah, knock on wood, we're doing okay this year so far.
so far, yeah. So thank you very much, Kazys,
Sure.
president of the Native Plant Society of New Jersey. You can look at their website, NPSNJ, and see what they have for events and newsletters and so on.
One of the amazing things about New Jersey as a state is its incredible geographic and ecological diversity. And so we have areas, that are this kind of mid-Atlantic coastal regions, and obviously Cape May is part of that. The Jersey Shore is part of that. We also have places like the Pine Barrens, which
Hmm.
are near the unique ecological system. In fact, there are some plants that grow there that don't grow anywhere else on the planet. We have areas like the Jersey Highlands, and where there's billion-year-old rocks underlying everything, and wooded forests, and then the Ridge and Valley area, which is even northwest of that, where there's a lot of uh, alkaline rocks there that leads to these kind of strange plants that don't want to grow in acidic forest. And then where I live, it's kind of in the middle of the coastal area and the forested area. So we have more forests, a very, very geographically diverse state. And it's not a small state either, as we know, we've actually the Native Plant Society has done wonderfully since COVID because we've adopted Zoom, and it's otherwise getting people to drive up from Cape May and
Yeah,
down from the Highlands for a monthly meeting is very, very tough, or rather was it almost impossible for some people.
right.
So one of that means we also have an ecological diversity in the state. It's a really great, even if it's the most urbanized state in the union, the first state that was considered completely urban according to the U.S. Census people, it has so much ecological diversity that it's really an amazing place. So it's one thing as I really try to encourage people to get out and look at the rest of the state because there's an awful lot of it, and there's a lot of beauty in the state. And Cape May is certainly one of the more beautiful parts of the state. So delighted to be going there for this trip.
I think he should run for governor.
Oh no.